Over a year ago, I think, I've kind of lost track of time, I did what no other person was brave enough to do. I took my RX 9070 and flashed an XT BIOS onto it. And not just as a proof of concept, I've actually been using that graphics card as my main gaming card. So in today's video, we're gonna see just how many fires I've started with my madness. Now, to briefly summarize what I did, some very smart person on the internet figured out that if you have an RX 9070, you can flash a 9070 XT BIOS onto it, which doesn't unlock any more cores or anything fun like that, but it does give you a much higher power window for your 9070. Now, the process to do this is not for the faint of heart. When I did it a year ago, you had to use a BIOS flasher and hook it straight up to the BIOS chip on your graphics card, which, considering that this is an expensive graphics card, is about as terrifying as hooking up nipple clamps after a marathon. And once you use some software to flash the BIOS on there, just like that, you've now got a much more power-hungry 9070. And not to beat around the bush, I've been using this card for a year now, and it didn't catch on fire, which is great for this kind of thing. Very exciting. So with that, let me walk you through what I've been using it for over the last year, what problems I had, and then we'll have a look at some benchmarks to see how much performance we gained. Now, over the last year, I've been using this BIOS modded 9070 in a bunch of configurations and for different use cases. For the initial one, I dropped it in my AMD-based small form factor mini PC, where I gamed on a 27-inch 1440p monitor for ages. I used it in that configuration for like 6 months, I think, and we'll have a look at the benchmarks and stuff to see how it actually handled 1440p gaming, but it's a 9070, so probably very well. Now, that AMD mini PC was really sick. I enjoyed it a lot, although I did run into problems when I tried to switch from Windows to Linux on it. Because of whatever the LAN chipset is that the Asus motherboard in that mini PC uses, Linux did not enjoy that system very much. It worked on it, and I got pretty good performance. I did a whole video talking about that a while ago, but I did occasionally have problems where my network connectivity would drop out, which is a real big problem when you're in the middle of a ranked Dota game. Other than that though, when I moved back to Windows 11, I didn't have any problems with that system that I can remember now. Now, you might be thinking, David, if you didn't have any problems with it, why did you switch over to a different one? And the reason for that was because I wanted to try Linux again. So I thought I'd switch over to a different system where I not only had access to different Ethernet chips, but I also wanted an ATX system so that the 2 Ethernet chipsets in the Asus motherboard I used in my ATX system, if they didn't work with Linux, at least I could drop an Ethernet card in that had known support for Linux. So when I replaced my editing system with a Mac Studio, I took my previous editing system home, dropped the 9070 in there, and that's the system I'm still using. The next change that happened though isn't system related, but it's much more important than the system upgrade performance wise, because I decided to replace the 4K 27-inch display that I was using with a 32-inch 4K OLED display. The problem was though, shifting from 1440p to 4K, that's a big difference in demand on your graphics card. And that's something that we'll see in the benchmarks later on. Which brings us to the fourth different use case, 5th, 6th, I can't remember where we're at now, but I also decided that I wanted to try some VR at home. Now, it was a while ago when I went through this whole ordeal, and I can't really remember the specifics, so I might be doing some misinformation here, but I remember not being able to get a signal out of the 9070 into the big screen beyond at all. I ended up shifting over to an RTX 4090 for that. No, it wasn't the 4090. I actually shifted over to a 5070 first, but then the 5070 got absolutely curb stomped by VR. So then I had to swap out the 5070 for a 4090. And this was just to play Dirt Rally 2. The big screen beyond, it's just a big knobbly stick to a graphics card's butt. It's crazy. Now, in terms of problems, Aside from the whole big screen beyond not outputting a signal thing, the only real issue I had with the 9070 was I'm currently in the midst of struggling to get AMD's software to allow me to screen capture with it. I don't know what's going on. I DDU wiped and installed 8 different versions of the driver. I installed it without access to internet. I did a whole bunch of stuff. Like the little thing in the window doesn't even pop up. And there's a bunch of suggestions on how to fix this problem online. People say that you have to delete the drivers through the Microsoft Store or whatever, but I did that and I still don't have screen capture on that system. So I don't really know what's going on there because I used to have screen capture with it. It's something that worked like 5 months ago, but it doesn't work anymore, and I can't get it working, and it's super frustrating. Now, with the grievances aired, one thing that's amazing about this Asus version of the RX 9070 that I bought was that it has 2 BIOS chips on it, and I flashed the new overclocked BIOS onto one of those chips, which gave me the flexibility to switch between them if I needed to. So let me quickly give you a demonstration of that. Now, I've currently got the 9070 running on its stock BIOS, and here in Cyberpunk it's drawing about 230 watts, which is a power draw I really enjoy my GPU using in summer, because when it hovers around 230 watts, you can still get a lot of performance out of the GPU, but it doesn't set your room on fire. Then when it's winter, and now our power draw has jumped up to over 300 watts. And you can see it's actually still running at under 60 degrees Celsius, which was honestly a bit of a problem I had with the card initially. Clearly the software really wants it to run at below 60 degrees Celsius, which means the cooler needs to crank the fans real hard to maintain that temperature with this power draw. Oh, what happened? Making the card all noisy and annoying. Luckily, the workaround to this problem is just setting manual fan curves. Easy solution. Oh, and another problem I had was the default fan control of this BIOS mod is extremely aggressive. The moment that there's any load on the GPU and the power draw jumps to 330 watts, the fans spin up to ultra mega cyclone mode for some reason. It gets super noisy while gaming, despite the fact that the temperatures are running in the mid-50s. Now, luckily, this is a pretty easy to remedy problem. You just use manual fan control in MSI Afterburner. But then manual fan control did lead to a different problem, which was I accidentally set it to 0% once, and then my system hard crashed while I was gaming because it overheated, but that was very much an ID10T issue. Other than that, I didn't have a single crash out of it, which is good. I will talk more specifically about actual games that I played, but a lot of it was Dota. Although I did stop playing Dota for a long time because, well, I just didn't have it in me anymore. The combination of work and trying to climb rank in Dota, no human being has enough mental fortitude for that kind of suffering. So I did cut out Dota a lot and then replaced it with Dirt Rally 2, which is also very mentally taxing. I really like to punish myself with video games. Now at 1440p, the 9070 runs the crap out of a game like DayZ, even with the loser stock BIOS in it. You can see this is some good performance we've got here. But it is actually surprising how much of this performance you lose jumping to 4K. We've dropped down to just over 100, and depending on where you look, it actually dips below that. This is a difference that you can genuinely feel, like the game does actually feel kind of heavier here. It's one of the things that I noticed when I moved to the 4K display, is that even modern GPUs, like 4K does not play around. Now, even with a much older game like Dirt Rally 2, you'll see that when we go from 1440p to 4K, yeah, at 1440p, you feel like you have infinite headroom, and then you switch to 4K and you're dipping into the low hundreds. And this problem gets more pronounced with a new game like Stalker, because at 1440p with high settings and some quality FSR, this is some serious Stalker 2 gaming performance. Like, this is very, very good. But then when you jump up to 4K, like, it's still usable, but that's a huge hit. We're now struggling to maintain in the 60s. I mean, it obviously depends on where we look, it jumps around quite a bit, but still, my point stands. 4K kinda takes this 9070 to town. But maybe pumping a whole bunch more juice into it will help. And the power jump kind of helps. With Cyberpunk at 1440p, we gain a little bit. The same for 4K. It's not really the kind of thing that you'll notice when you don't have the overlay up though. And when you compare it to a full-fledged 9070 XT, it does help close the gap a little bit, but a proper XT card does still give you a decent jump in performance, even with the BIOS mod. Interestingly, DayZ actually sees a bigger performance jump at 1440p with the BIOS mod than at 4K, which I wasn't really expecting. And again, with Dirt Rally 2 at 4K, we're just gaining about 6 frames per second. Again, nothing earth-shattering, especially considering that we're almost using 100 watts more power. With Stalker 2, on the other hand, we actually gain 10% more performance at 4K. Very nice. So performance-wise, I'm actually kind of disappointed that I didn't test this like this earlier, because well, it's pretty much not worth the power draw gain that I've been using for the last year now. But hey, at least the graphics card didn't catch on fire, which is good. Let me know in the comment section down below if this is the kind of thing that you think is worth it for you. I guess that would depend on how much electricity costs in your region and how risk averse you are to hooking up your graphics card's BIOS nipples to a clamp. And as always, subscribe on your way down there, and until the next video, thank you for watching. Bye bye.